5 promises from God for the days you feel forgotten. Introduction. There are days when you wake up and the world feels too quiet. Your phone doesn't ring. The people who used to check in have moved on with their lives. You scroll through messages, see everyone else busy, laughing, achieving, and you feel like the world has quietly forgotten your name. You go to work, come home, eat alone, sleep, and repeat. Life becomes a pattern of silence. You pray, but heaven doesn't seem to respond. You wonder if your words just bounce off the ceiling and fall back into your lap. And that question begins to whisper in your heart. Has God forgotten me too? We all face those seasons. Seasons when our plans fall apart, when friends fade away, when our prayers hang unanswered. It's in those moments that faith feels hardest, because faith requires trust in the unseen, and trust is difficult when everything visible looks empty. But here's the truth. God never forgets. He doesn't move on, and he doesn't scroll past your pain. Even when you can't feel him, he's closer than your own heartbeat. His silence isn't absence, it's preparation. His delay isn't rejection, it's direction. And that's why the Bible gives us promises. Not vague words, but living truths to hold on to when life grows quiet. So today we'll look at 5 promises from God. Promises to carry you through the lonely days, the waiting seasons, the nights you feel unseen. Because even when the world forgets, God still remembers your name. Part 1. When everyone leaves, God stays. There comes a season in life when the people who used to be constant in your world begin to fade away. Not because they stopped caring, but because life pulls them in different directions. You notice it in small things at first, fewer messages, shorter calls, cancelled plans that no one reschedules. And slowly, you start to feel like you're standing still while everyone else is moving on. It happens quietly. You don't even realize it until one night. You look around your room and realize it's just you. No laughter echoing from the other side of the phone. No one asking how your day was. The photos on your wall tell stories of people who used to be close, but now live in another time. And there, in that silence, a thought creeps in. Maybe I'm just forgettable. You might have done everything right. You were kind, you were loyal, you showed up when others needed you. But somehow, when it was your turn to need someone, the room emptied out. That kind of loneliness doesn't shout. It just lingers, like a quiet ache behind your ribs. You still smile, still go to work, still say I'm fine, but inside, you feel the weight of being unseen. And then comes the question, God, are you still here? Because if people can forget you, maybe he can too. Maybe he can too. If friends can drift away, maybe heaven can too. But before you let that thought take root, remember what God said long before you ever felt alone. I will never leave you, nor forsake you. Deuteronomy 31:6. That isn't a poetic line, it's a promise. It means that even when the house grows silent, when your plans fall apart, when your name slips from the minds of others, God remembers. He hasn't moved an inch. When Moses passed his leadership to Joshua, everything was uncertain. The people were scared, the road ahead was unknown. But God didn't hand them a map. He gave them a promise. I will go with you. Because presence matters more than direction. That's what he offers you too. Not always explanations, not always answers, but presence. And sometimes that's the greatest miracle of all. Maybe you feel his presence not in thunder or visions, but in small things, in the calm that settles over you after a long cry, in a song that plays at the exact moment you need it, in the friend who randomly texts thinking of you, right when you thought no one was. That's not coincidence, that's companionship. It's God's quiet way of reminding you that you're still seen, still loved, still held. He doesn't always fix the loneliness, but he fills it. He doesn't always explain the silence, but he sits in it with you. And sometimes that's more powerful than anything he could say. So if today feels like everyone has left, if you walk into your house and it feels too empty, if your phone stays quiet, if your prayers seem to echo back, take heart. You are not the only one in the room. You are not the only one listening. God is still there. Not pacing nervously or waiting for you to earn his attention, but settled, steady, sure. He stays when everyone else leaves. He listens when no one else calls. He watches when no one else notices. And maybe one day, when you look back on this season, you'll realize the silence you hated most was actually the space where he was closest. Because that's who he is, the God who stays. Part 2. When people let you down, God lifts you up. It's one of the hardest lessons to learn, that the people you love most can also be the ones who hurt you the deepest. Sometimes it's betrayal. Sometimes it's neglect. Sometimes it's just the slow realization that someone you counted on is no longer counting on you. You give your heart, your time, your loyalty, and in return, you're left with silence. It's not just disappointment, it's a crack that runs through the middle of your trust. You look back at old conversations, old photos, old memories, and you whisper to yourself, how did it all change? You replay what you said, what you didn't say, what you could have done differently, as if you could rewind the story and fix it. But the truth is, sometimes people let you down because they're human, not because you failed. People change, seasons shift, love fades. But God doesn't. The Bible says, even if my father and mother forsake me, the Lord will receive me. Psalm 27:10. It's a verse that doesn't sugarcoat life. It doesn't pretend people will always be there for you. It tells you the truth. Even the strongest bonds on earth can break. But it also gives you hope, because God's love doesn't. He receives you when others release you. He stays when others step back. He believes in you when others stop seeing your worth. Think about Joseph. Betrayed by his brothers, thrown into a pit, sold like a stranger. He had every reason to give up on love, on family, on faith. But even in the dungeon, the Bible says, the Lord was with Joseph. That single sentence changes everything. Because it means no betrayal, no rejection, no forgotten promise could erase God's plan for his life. And maybe that's what you need to remember too. The people who walked away didn't cancel God's purpose. Their absence didn't remove your value, it revealed it. They left because your journey needed to grow beyond what they could understand. Sometimes, what feels like rejection is really redirection. God allows doors to close because he knows you'd stay stuck in rooms that no longer fit you. He lets certain voices go silent so you can finally hear his. When people disappoint you, don't let bitterness become your home. Bitterness always looks like strength. It feels like protection, but it poisons your peace. Instead, lift your eyes. The same God who watched you be broken is the God who will build you again, stronger and softer at the same time. He's the one who lifts you when your hands are too tired to reach for help. He's the one who reminds you that being let down isn't the end of love. It's the beginning of learning what real love looks like. Real love doesn't abandon. It doesn't manipulate or disappear when you need it most. Real love stays, and that's what God is. So when someone walks away, let them. When someone stops showing up, release them. It's not your job to chase what God has already carried out of your life. Your job is to heal, to trust, to let him lift you higher than the pain that tried to pull you under. Because when people let you down, it's not the end of your story. It's just the moment God bends down, takes your hand, and whispers, "You're not alone. I've got you." He lifts you, not so you can stand above others, but so you can stand again at all. And one day, you'll realize the fall didn't destroy you. It introduced you to the one who never drops what he loves. Because everyone else may let go, but God never does. Part 3. You're not forgotten. You're engraved. Have you ever walked into a room and realized no one even noticed you came in? It's a strange kind of ache, not sharp, not loud, but heavy. You sit quietly in a group conversation, and your words fall flat. You post something meaningful, and no one responds. You try to hold things together, your home, your job, your family, but no one seems to see the effort. You start to feel invisible. Not hated, not rejected, just unseen. And that kind of invisibility is one of the hardest feelings to explain. Because how do you tell someone, I feel like I don't exist, when technically you're right there in front of them? That's why God's words in Isaiah 49 are so powerful. They were spoken to people who felt forgotten, exiled, overlooked, abandoned. They cried out, "The Lord has forsaken me. The Lord has forgotten me." And God answered with a question that pierces through centuries. Can a mother forget her nursing child? Even if she could, I will not forget you. Then he adds something even more intimate. See, I have engraved you on the palms of my hands. Not written, not penciled in, engraved. Because ink fades, paper tears, but engraving stays. It becomes part of what it's written on. That means your name, your story, your scars, they're carved into God's very being. Every time he reaches out, your name moves with him. Every act of mercy, every touch of grace, every answered prayer carries a trace of you. Sometimes you think God doesn't see you because he's quiet. But the truth is, he's been watching over you in every unnoticed moment. In the mornings when you get up even though you don't want to. In the nights when you cry quietly so no one else hears. In the conversations you bite your tongue to keep peace. In the acts of kindness you do, even when no one thanks you. Those moments don't vanish. They're engraved. God keeps record, not to judge you, but to remember your faithfulness when no one else does. Every sacrifice, every act of love, every prayer you whispered into the dark. He's seen it all, and he treasures it. When Jesus stretched out his hands on the cross, it wasn't just nails that marked him, it was love. Love that refused to forget. Love that chose permanence over comfort. Love that said, your name belongs here on me. So when you feel like the world has moved on without you, when birthdays pass quietly, when your phone stays silent, when your name isn't on anyone's list, look toward heaven, because your name is already written where it matters most. Not in someone's memory, not in someone's phone, but in the hands that hold eternity. You are not forgotten. You are engraved. And maybe, just maybe, the reason no one else notices you right now is because God is keeping your story hidden until the right moment. He hides what he loves until it's ready to shine. He's not ignoring you. He's shaping you. He's preparing something that will need the depth you gained in the quiet. So don't let invisibility make you doubt your worth. The world may forget what doesn't shine loud enough, but heaven never does. And the same hands that carve stars into the night sky have carved you into their lines forever. You're not invisible. You're not a forgotten face in the crowd. You're an everlasting engraving on the palms of a loving God. Part 4. He's with you, even in the ordinary. Some promises sound too large for small days. I am with you always. We expect that in cathedrals, at hospital bedsides, on the edge of miracles, but Jesus' words were given to ordinary people who woke to ordinary mornings. Fishermen whose nets tangled, mothers who reheated leftovers, workers who counted coins twice because the math never seemed to favor them. If his promise doesn't fit into Tuesdays, it isn't the promise he made. Start with a morning you know well. The alarm insists. Your back aches a little. You shuffle to the kitchen, measure coffee by muscle memory, and stare at the window while the kettle sighs. The house is quiet enough to hear last night's worries again. You don't feel holy. You feel human, tired, behind, vaguely anxious. And yet there is a small steadiness in the room you didn't invite. It doesn't announce itself. It simply is. That quiet is not emptiness. It is presence. Before a single prayer forms, the companion of your soul is already there. You carry that presence down the hallway, past the laundry you meant to fold, into a room where the day begins in earnest. A child can't find a shoe. A spouse can't find patience. You can't find your keys. You're 5 minutes late before you touch the front door. Something sharp rises in your chest, the old urge to snap. Then the smallest pause arrives, like a hand on your shoulder. Breathe. It's not willpower. It's witness. Jesus' promise coming to you as restraint, as gentleness you didn't have to manufacture. Presence follows you into traffic. Red lights bloom like a field of brake lamps. A notification reminds you of a bill you forgot. A memory reminds you of a wound you didn't. You tighten your grip on the wheel. Then, unasked, a sentence surfaces, I am with you. Not with you once the problem is solved, with you while you have none. Your circumstances haven't improved, your heart has. That is what the nearness of God often looks like in real time. Not a detour around the hard, but a mantle of peace within it. At work, His presence looks like clarity. An email arrives laced with misunderstanding. Old, you would compose a defense. With you drafts a question. Can we talk so I understand? The day is still complicated, but you are less so. Or presence appears as creativity, a connection you hadn't seen, a phrase for a proposal, an idea in a meeting that simply lands right. You can't explain why the fog lifted, you only know it did. Faith names that lift. Presence is in the errands too. The grocery aisle where inflation stretches money thin. The pharmacy line where every face carries its own private ache. The parking lot where you pause because the sunset looks like mercy poured over concrete. None of these moments are dramatic. All of them can become altars if you notice. Jesus promised, I am with you always, to the end of the age. Matthew 28:20. He spoke it on a hillside, but He meant it for every hallway you'll ever walk. Always includes the kitchen sink at 9:17 p.m., the spreadsheet at 2:40 p.m., and the ceiling you study when you can't sleep at 1:13 a.m. It includes the days you feel resolute and the days you are held together by one whispered prayer, help. Sometimes His presence feels like protection, the late departure that kept you from the accident you never knew was possible, the closed door that turned out to be a rescue, not a rejection. Sometimes it feels like provision, the exact amount you needed appearing in an envelope or a refund you forgot you were owed. Sometimes it feels like companionship, a text that arrives mid-sigh, a neighbor's wave at the precise moment you were sure no one saw you. And sometimes it feels like nothing at all, only the fact that you made it through a day that could have broken you. Do not despise that kind of miracle. There will be days when you cannot feel Him. Feelings are weather, His promise is climate. Practice noticing. Let simple sentences anchor you to truth. At the sink, you are with me. At the desk, you are with me. On the phone, you are with me. Under the covers when the mind runs laps, you are with me. These are not magic words, they are reminders that pull tomorrow's fear back into today's grace. Remember too, the order of the promise in Scripture. Jesus couples His nearness with a calling. Go, and I am with you. Presence does not wait for perfection. It empowers obedience. When you forgive first, He is with you. When you tell the truth gently, He is with you. When you make the appointment you've avoided, He is with you. When you choose quiet faithfulness over loud frustration, He is with you. The task may still be small. The holiness never is. And when the day finally exhales, dishes done, lights low, street a hush, you may feel questions crowd the room. Am I doing enough? Am I enough? Place them in the presence. The one who sat with you at breakfast sits with you now. He has not revised His promise at any hour. He has not reconsidered His love. I am with you always. Always means the God who holds galaxies also rides along in your car, waits with you in lobbies, smiles with you at kitchen tables, and blesses bedsides with peace. If there is a miracle hidden in the ordinary, it is simply this: you were never meant to carry your day alone, and you never have. He is here, in the errands, in the emails, in the echoing quiet. Holy ground wears shoes in your world. Part 5. God's silence isn't absence, it's preparation. There are seasons when heaven feels like a locked door. You pray, and the words fall flat. You open your Bible, and the pages feel blank. You wait, but nothing changes. It's easy in those moments to think that silence means abandonment, that God has packed up and moved on to people who pray better, believe stronger, live holier. But silence is not His goodbye. It's His classroom. Think of the farmer watching over a field. For months there's nothing to see, just dirt and weather. But underground, the seed is breaking open, rooting down before it ever grows up. The quiet doesn't mean nothing is happening. It means something sacred is happening, where you can't yet see. God often works that way. He was silent while Joseph sat in prison, while Hannah wept in the temple, while Job stared at the ashes of his old life. Yet none of them were abandoned. Joseph was being prepared for leadership. Hannah was being readied for a miracle. Job was being rebuilt with a deeper kind of faith, the kind that can't be shaken because it has already been broken. Sometimes God's silence is protection. He withholds an answer because if he gave it now, it would be too heavy to carry. Sometimes it's direction. You think you're stuck, but he's actually steering you, teaching you to trust the hand you can't see. And sometimes silence is intimacy. He stops speaking out loud, so you'll learn to hear him inside. If you think about your life, you'll realize some of your greatest growth didn't happen when everything was clear. It happened in the fog. When you didn't know what to do, but you kept walking. When you didn't feel anything, but you kept praying. When you didn't hear a voice, but you stayed faithful anyway. That's what maturity sounds like. Footsteps in the dark, guided by trust, not by sight. Jeremiah 29:11 says, "For I know the plans I have for you, declares the Lord, plans to prosper you and not to harm you, plans to give you hope and a future." That verse was written to people who thought they'd been forgotten, exiled, homesick, unsure if they'd ever see redemption again. God didn't tell them the details. He didn't give them a timeline. He just said, "I know." And sometimes that's all you get. Not full clarity, just a whispered "I know." But that whisper carries the weight of eternity behind it. He knows the prayers you stopped praying because you got tired of disappointment. He knows the dreams that seem too far gone. He knows the ache you can't explain to anyone. He knows the version of you that's trying so hard to stay hopeful. If he's silent right now, it's not because he's gone. It's because he's working in ways words couldn't explain. The silence is shaping you, teaching you to listen differently, to depend more deeply, to trust beyond what's visible. When God finally speaks again, when the doors open, when the answer comes, when the season shifts, you'll see why the silence had to come first. You'll realize he wasn't ignoring you. He was strengthening you. He wasn't late, he was perfecting the timing. So if this is your quiet season, don't rush it. Breathe in the stillness. Trust that what feels empty is actually sacred space. Because even in silence, heaven is speaking through patience, through waiting, through faith that refuses to quit. One day, you'll look back and thank God for not answering sooner. Because the silence that scared you became the soil that grew you. He's not gone. He's just getting you ready. Conclusion. When you look back on the seasons that felt like endings, you'll start to see they were never endings at all, just quiet beginnings. The friendships that faded, the prayers that went unanswered, the years that felt wasted, none of it was outside of God's sight. He was there in the waiting, in the weeping, in the wondering. Every silence, every delay, every ache had a purpose stitched inside it. Because that's how he works. God doesn't rush what he loves. He prunes before he blesses. He clears before he fills. He lets what's false fall away so what's real can remain. Maybe right now you don't see how any of this makes sense. Maybe you're still sitting in the middle of questions, holding on to faith that feels smaller than it used to. But hear this, even the smallest faith is still faith. Even a trembling hand can hold on to grace. The God who stayed when everyone else left is still here. The one who lifted you when people let you down is still holding you. The one who engraved your name on his hands hasn't forgotten a single detail of your story. The one who walked with you through ordinary days is walking beside you still. And even in the silence, he is preparing something beautiful, something worth the wait. So, if you only remember one thing, let it be this. You are not forgotten. You are not alone. And you are not behind. God's timing is still perfect. His presence is still constant. And his promises still stand. Because long after the noise fades, long after the world moves on, there will still be one who whispers through the quiet of your heart, "I'm here. I never left.